Hello, everybody. As you can see, my name is Mark Godsland. I work for Thames Valley Police, and I'm what we in the police call cyber protective officer. But for the public and the business consumption, I suppose I'm what's called a business and public police cybersecurity advisor. I have no technical skills. I'm not an expert in any field, other than I've had the training and experience of being a former police officer and doing the role I do now. Ian very kindly alluded to the role that I do. Pre-COVID, had we been doing this session, it would have been a 2-hour session in place with me speaking at the front with loads of video content and slides and going through a presentation. That world will probably resurrect itself at some stage in the future, but we need to now start moving forward and getting sessions out to the public and businesses. Now, the reason why we, TVP, Thames Valley Police, have not done any webinars up to now is because nationally and regionally, policing are doing these sessions and they're available and they are scaled at the national and the regional level. Locally, the challenge is that obviously I'm working remotely. I have technology which I can use, but in the police, we're now not enabled to use the video functionality and some of the other benefits that yourselves can use if you do Teams. So today is a relatively unscripted session about cyber protect, but the most important thing is I want businesses to understand that if they did not perceive or believe that they are at risk, assuming they have not been targeted, and this is not to try and raise the fear of crime, is that you are at risk. You are either at risk because you have already been compromised and you don't know it yet. And there are many, many national and international examples of that. Alternatively, you could be in the future. Please, if you're a business, don't perceive that because you are a small business, you are not important. You are. You are to them because you could be the lever, the leverage, the in to a bigger company. And unfortunately, when it comes to small businesses, they don't have the ability, maybe not even the financial resources to protect themselves. But in fact, it doesn't have to be that difficult. All it needs is a business, whether you're a sole trader, limited company, SME, medium-sized enterprise, larger enterprise, is think about threat, risk and harm and how you deal with that. So cyber, in terms of a business resilience model, needs to be part of your overall business plan. And what I seek to do is try and signpost people who have not had that exposure to where they need to go. Now, one of our audience is Bill. Bill and I have met a couple of times at presentations, and it's be true to say that Bill is a cybersecurity expert because that's the world that he works in. So if there's any technical questions, Bill would be my go-to person to answer the questions. Internationally, nationally, has there been a rise in cybercrime? Well, the jury is probably still out in terms of the figures that we, law enforcement in the United Kingdom, would get to see. But I think it would be fair to say that probably yes. Why? Well, because most of the workforce have gone from working in a secure environment to working from home. And in that comes loads of problems, be it you're working in an environment where there's lots of things going on. You're not maybe cognizant of the fact that you are perhaps leaking information because maybe your screen is facing a public thoroughfare, or people who are coming in and out of the house could see things going on, or the fact that you're using insecure connection, you're not VPNing, virtual private networking into the company, etc., etc. So in terms of threat, risk and harm, what we are seeing is, and what we're concentrating at the moment under the COVID-19 issue, is ransomware, phishing, working from home, and other online fraud. So in terms of ransomware, well, what is it? Well, it's where you as a user have inadvertently clicked on a link or downloaded a piece of software onto your device. And again, this is very simplistic, and that has, over a period of time, or maybe instantaneously, enabled itself onto your device. You probably even didn't realize that, clicking on a link, opening an attachment or whatever it might be. And unbeknown to you, behind the background scenes in the software, it eventually corrupts or closes everything off to the point where you get a screen saying your system has now been ransomed. If you don't pay the ransom, you're not getting anything back. And clearly, if that happens to a very small business or any business, that's going to be very disconcerting. So there is advice there, and I'm starting now to promote the National Cybersecurity Centre, or NCSC. This is the UK's cyber centre. Should be seen as the centre of excellence in terms of advice, guidance and support, and they've been up and running since around about 2016. Their website is accessible to anybody. There's lots of information on there from the individual right up to the security professional. With regard to ransoms, our advice up until recently would have been that if you had been subject to a ransomware attack, we would advise you not to pay it. And the reason being is that if you do, firstly, you are inadvertently funding serious organised crime. And secondly, there's no guarantee that you're going to get your files back. And they could have even encrypted the backup, etc., etc. I had a week's leave. I came back to find that nationally the advice now is we're not going to make any judgment or any decision on that, other than to say if you feel you have to pay the ransom, that's fine. If you don't, again, that's fine. But we're not leaning on the side of we would encourage people not to pay the ransom. But in that comes other issues. Have you got cyber insurance? What does your insurance policy say? Have you got a backup? When was the last time you checked your backup, etc., etc.? So ransomware is a big issue, and it does need to be addressed. And there are various things that you can do. Firstly, by ensuring that you have a cybersecurity plan, you back up your data, you protect your organization from malware, you keep your other devices, smartphone, tablets, etc., safe. You use passwords to protect your data. We'll talk very quickly about passwords when we come to phishing, and you avoid phishing attacks, and then what other actions you can take, etc. So phishing, what is phishing? Well, it can be in various forms. It can be either through an SMS message, it could be through an email, it could be through a phone call. I wonder how many of us are listening to this have actually had a phone call when we've been sat at home and a guy maybe with my voice says, hello, and they call you by your name. My name is John Thompson. I work for Microsoft. I understand you've got a problem with your computer. I'm here to help you. Well, the response would be probably, firstly, I haven't got a computer. Secondly, I use a Mac. I haven't got a Windows device. Thirdly, oh my goodness me, yes, there is a problem. Thank you ever so much. Or no, I know it's a scam. Go away. And unfortunately, that is just another means by which people can, over a period of time, socially engineer you into gaining access to your systems, your financial details, etc., etc. But equally, it could get you to transfer money out of your account from your business to another account because, and again, we talk about social engineering. Of the people who are listening, do you have a social media platform, either as yourself or a company? What do you post on that? Is there any information that could help a cyber criminal do a targeted spear phishing attack on you, or is it just generic phishing? And what they're trying to do, they're trying to get you to do something either through threat, harm, fear, reward, or our innate capacity as individuals to think there's something always out there that's better. And if it looks too good to be true, although the maxim should be, yes, it probably is too good to be true, people latch onto this. And they then get you to change financial details, and unbeknown to the company as a whole, the finance director, because they've acted on something that appears to come from their CEO, has sent an exorbitant amount of money over to another account, only to find out months later, or maybe even days later, they shouldn't have done that. Working from home, well, we very briefly touched on that, and online fraud, well, it can be, as I said, phone call. You could even be sent a letter saying that you won the Nigerian lottery. Well, the question you should be asking yourself is, have you ever been to Nigeria? No. Have you ever entered any lottery in Nigeria? No. So why are you actually responding to that? Why don't you just, rip the paper up, put it in the bin? Equally, if you get an email like that, please don't interact with that. And that brings us on now to innovations that the NCSC, National Cybersecurity Centre, have put out recently. A couple of those are this. There is now specific advice for companies in terms of ransomware, phishing, working from home, and online fraud. And that is available through the National Cybersecurity website. So all you do is just do a search NCSC, and that will bring you up to their page. You can then find information. And again, just to reiterate, there's information for individuals, sole traders or limited companies, SMEs, larger entities, public sector, charities, and the security professionals. With that now, they've also, probably about a month ago now, they launched the suspicious email reporting service. So up until that point, if you had a phishing email and you knew it was a phishing email, you could report that to Action Fraud. Now you don't have to do that. You send it straight to the NCSC suspicious email reporting service, and they can then take further action from that. And in the month it's been going, I think the interactions they've had have been quite phenomenal, well over 100,000, and they've taken down some websites, and they've obviously closed off lots of suspicious email accounts, which is really good. Other places where you can get advice is from our Twitter account, which is, if you have pen and paper, it's at TVP cyber _ fraud, and that account's been operating since November 2017, and it's nearly up to 1,000 now, and I'm not interested in numbers. I'm the moderator for it. I'm not interested in numbers. What I'm after, please, if you do follow us, is that you share the information. And even though you may know the content that we're talking about, it's important you share the information, because there will be some people, and we'll just veer off slightly away from businesses, there will be some people in your social circles that, yes, they have technology, but they probably don't understand how to use it. And you can be that bridge from someone who can understand it to show them what they need to be doing. So let's talk about our portable devices that we have, our mobile phones, our tablets. You'd be surprised how many people still do not have a PIN or fingerprint or facial recognition. So if I was to find a device, technically, if that hadn't been enabled, I could pick it up and I could find out a lot about that individual, maybe even gain access to their financial accounts. Then that brings up the issue about passwords. Up until probably 18 months ago, 2 years ago, we were looking at serious complex passwords, alphanumeric, etc., 15 or so characters. And we're human, you know, we can't remember things. I, as an individual, I can probably remember about 7 passwords, but I need to have a strategy. So the strategies that come from the National Cybersecurity Centre now are 3 random words, and make sure that your email account is protected by a strong separate password. So you can use 3 random words, or you can use, although it's not the official advice, password manager. I do. Why? Because it's convenient. I have an application that stores all my passwords. It creates passwords for me. I don't have to have all that worry and faff about creating a password. I just pay a one-off retainer fee per year to whoever my password manager is, and off I go. But if you don't want to do that, the advice is from the NCSC is you can store your passwords on your browser. Now, there is an issue with that, in that if you share your device and access that device with other people, you can't do that, because clearly, if you leave the browser open, people can still gain access to your accounts. So passwords need to be separate, individual for everything. The next thing on from that is 2-factor authentication, a means by which you can better secure your sensitive information. So imagine the password is the moat, your 2FA is the castle or the keep. You are protecting what is there. There is some issue about whether or not you set up 2FA using SMS messaging. Is that secure? Well, it's still the advice. It's better than nothing, but perhaps you could be considering using a authenticator app. Microsoft do it, Google do it, and there are means by which you can add things to that. If you were to gain maybe a security provider, so for example, I use Norton. They enable me to have a password manager. They also enable me to have a virtual private network, which is a means by which I can secure my communications when I'm in a public area and I need to access Wi-Fi because maybe I don't have any data network. But I know that all my data that I'm using on my device to the server is encrypted by this virtual private network. And there are other functions that you can get with security packages. For example, you can get antivirus for your devices. Please don't think, those you have Macs, that you're immune for viruses. That's a complete fallacy. That's an urban myth. you're just as likely to be targeted in terms of viruses by anything else that comes to the Windows. It's just that Windows is more prevalent as a user platform than Macs. And again, you need to make sure that your devices are fully up to date with all the latest software. If you don't know how to do that, you just go into the settings, control panel, security settings, and it will talk you through or show you what to do. Indeed, if you go to the NCSC website and you look at a new website called Cyber Aware, which is a offshoot of the NCSC process platform, that is there for individuals or sole traders giving you advice. And it actually shows you what to do and what you can and can't do. And finally, reporting. I just want to make sure that everybody who's listening to this understands that if you are a victim of either cyber or fraud, please report it. Now, it could well be that the information you give to Action Fraud when you put the information in is insufficient. There's insufficient evidence or information to help the local police to go off and investigate it. Nevertheless, we will then know a better and more accurate picture of what is being reported. So that's through Action Fraud. If you're a business and you're suffering a live cyber attack, you can report that 24/7 via Action Fraud. Although there is a phone number you can dial, it's better that you do it online. So that really concludes the information I wanted to give you. This is a very broad brushstroke. For those of you who either are following our Twitter account or those who want to in the future, by end of play today, I would have put a couple of videos up. One looks at passwords and how easy it is to actually get that information out of people just by asking them simple questions. And this is in a public environment in America a couple of years ago. And finally, there's one it's called a coffee shop video, whereby CFAS, which is a branch for the making sure that the financial institutions are secure, and also working with National Crime Agency and Action Fraud, they ask people to like on Facebook, and you can see what happens from there. I haven't really got anything more to say than that. If this is a relatively well-received webinar, this is the first time we've done it, hence why we haven't got anything formal there. We can put in more context and more dedicated information. By then, I will have the new national slide set, because the slide set I would have used is obviously now redundant because we've had a change in the information coming out of the NCSC. And also the Cyber Aware one, that's different because we'll have a new dedicated slide set. So when we get to the point where we're post-COVID and we start going out to doing our presentations, we will have the new content and information there. One final thing, for those of you who are listening, if you've got your smartphone with you, please switch it on, get it in front of you now, or if you've got a terminal, go to a website called Have I Been, and it's spelt PWNED. Have I Been Pwned? And as you type that into your search bar, I'll just tell you a little bit about this. This is set up by a guy called Troy Hunt. Troy Hunt
Mark,
is
sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you just repeat that? Have I been
Pwned? PWNED. And the reason I'm introducing this now is that when I do my visual presentations to people in the room, this is one of the exercises I get people to do. So get your smart device, go to a search engine, type in "Have I Been Pwned?" PWNED. This website is.
This may not work, but
yeah.
This is always dangerous. Paul is now cringing. Can you see what I'm doing? Is this now visible to everyone?
Not at the moment.
Oh. That's strange. Is the presentation gone, or is the presentation still?
You probably need to stop sharing and then reshare, Ian.
Right, stop sharing and reshare, and then share the screen rather than or desktop.
Yeah.
Let's try that. Have I been pwned? Right, can you see that now?
Oh, that's it. Well done.
Yeah,
so click
perfect.
on that.
Just load
Click on that.
Yeah. Now, seeing you're the guy who's doing this, if you want to put in a email address, I suggest you put in your work one, because I think that's probably the one that's most known in the public domain. And after I will tell you, before you press search, I'll just explain to you what happens. So this website is set up by a guy called Troy Hunt. He is an ethical hacker, and he was getting fed up seeing data breaches. That's where a cyber criminals gain access to a company's data. They breach the information, or they take the information out, and then they extract the information that's in basically plain text. And then they sell this information on the dark web to whoever wants to buy it. And sometimes it's pence, but sometimes it's pounds or dollars or whatever. And then they use this information, and it could be your email address, part of your password, or all your password, maybe even financial details, to go out and carry out mass phishing attacks. Now, if you get one of these types of emails saying, "Hi, so-and-so, you don't know me, but I know you. This is your email address, and this is part of your password," immediately you'd be thinking, "Oh, this is a bit sus." Then they might even say something, "I know what you've been doing, but don't worry, your secret's safe with me. I know you've been watching porn," etc., etc., etc. And what I want you to do is I want you to pay 5 Bitcoins to this account. So what it is, in reality, is not targeted at you as an individual. They have got limited information about these breaches, and they are trying it on to get someone who bites. So in an analogy of a fishing environment, if we're stood by the river now, we're all casting away, eventually one of us will get a bite. That's when the phishing attempt is being secure. We now start reeling this individual in. So if you get an email such as the one I explained to you, don't react to it. If you want to report that to the suspicious email reporting service, please do, but then delete it and forget about it. But if you do engage with it, that's when they can start reeling you in. So they don't know anything about you, they're just trying it on. So if you do the search now from what you've got on there.
I'll put money on it, LinkedIn's in there.
Oh no, it says there already. Oh no, pooned. So at some stage, somebody who held that email address has been breached. So that could be TalkTalk, could be Carphone Warehouse, could be Marriott Hotels, could be EasyJet, etc., etc., etc. So if you can scroll up from the bottom going upwards, there you go. It says it's been pooned, and a bit more. It says 3 breach sites. So the first one is data enrichment exposure from PDI customer. So they'll give you a little bit of a blurb about that, where it's come from. And then if you scroll up again to see what else is showing, okay, that's basically where all the information was. So sometimes it is a specific company, such as the ones I've said, or it's an aggregated grouping where information has been stored. It might specifically say, well, this one I think says October 2019. So if your email address into your email account that you put in there has not been changed since then, I suggest you do it PDQ.
Change my email address.
No, change the password. Change the password for your email address.
Okay, I think we change that regularly, don't we, Paula?
We do, yeah.
Okay, but if it was in an individual context, so that was your own email address or anybody's email address, if you have changed your password since that date, that whatever it says on there, okay, that's fine. Then you need to be thinking about setting up 2-factor authentication. And again, if you go to the National Cybersecurity website, put in 2FA or set up 2FA, that will take you to a link, which takes you to another link that's it's called turnon2fa.com, and that goes through a process, or you can look at it through the CyberAware website, which is part of the NCSC. So the point to it, I do this is to show that often people have no idea that their data has been breached. You may have heard it, but in actual fact, the company whose information has been breached, your information, has not notified you. Now, under the GDPR, which is nearly 2 years old now, their company has 72 hours in which to tell their customers, or sorry, inform the ICO, and they must also inform their customers, etc., etc. So that just demonstrates that it's really important that you have strong, secure, individual email passwords and set up 2FA, because if they have the basic information, they can technically try and get into your accounts. Now, it could well be that they haven't got all the information, or maybe some of it, but it gives them a process by which they can start trying to gain more information, assuming they choose to take that attack approach. And again, that brings us back then to reporting If you do suspect you've been sent a suspicious email, report it to the suspicious email reporting service, or if you have been a victim of fraud, do please report it to Action Fraud.